Hey, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Leading Through Unprecedented Times. With me for this episode, Dr. Rosa Perez-Isiah. Rosa, it is awesome to have you on, an incredible leader in California. Can you take a moment to tell the audience who you are, where you're from, and where you serve?
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here, coming to you live from my home office, my couch. I am currently a director in the Norwalk-La Mirada School District in California, and I've been here for about a year and a half. So this is a new journey for me. Director of elementary schools. So I work with 17 amazing principals and staff to support our kids. Um, I love connecting. I'm a connected educator. I love the power of social media and being able to amplify the voices of others. So I'm honored to be here and to be able to share a little bit about my COVID-19 leadership experience with all of our listeners.
Yeah, Rosa, and when we look outside because of COVID-19, no matter where we look, regardless of the state, with all the shutdowns and the shelter in place and, trying to do some of this remote learning stuff and uncertainties there's so much out there to get us down. But what I know and what I love about you is this, you're a beacon for hope. And so my question for you is, what's an area, or what's something that just gives you hope right now as an educational leader, that just when you go to bed at night, you're smiling from ear to ear? Just what's that big hope that you have in the midst of a crisis? Here we are in this midst of a pandemic. What's bringing you hope?
What gives me hope is the human connection. So we're not connecting in person, but we continue to make efforts to connect with our students, with our teams, with our families. And so uh, just seeing how people are coming together to support each other, whether it is a district providing food and mental health services to kids and families, or the things that I'm seeing, just the supports for healthcare workers, the united voice. It has brought people together in a different way. And that gives me hope, because there is a lot of negativity, and I wish we had better leadership in just to be frank with you, as a country. And so it's easy to get caught up in that and to worry about that. But if we turn to those stories of hope and connection and love that people are sharing right now in support of each other, that that makes me happy. It brings a
Yeah.
smile to my face, and it helps me um, remember that we're going to come out stronger after this is all over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And districts have they've been asked to redesign virtually all the things that they do, even down to how they distribute food or how they are doing the teaching and learning inside, and there's been so many obstacles along the way. So what are you seeing as some of the greatest obstacles, whether it's through remote learning or whether it's just that connection, that human connection that this pandemic is causing? And then how are you all working through that, or what are you seeing other districts do to work through some of those large obstacles that are real?
Gosh, the biggest part is the inequity that we knew existed prior to this, that has really been amplified as a result of COVID-19. It's heartbreaking to realize what some of our families are going through. I was sharing with someone that, um, going through this with my family, we have what we need. I have a job. My husband has a job. We are handling it. But as a child, Rosa the kid, this would have been a really difficult time for my family. I have a lot of siblings, grew up in poverty. And so thinking about what our students are experiencing and being empathetic to that, especially if you haven't been through it, which is fine. Hopefully, not many of us have been through it, but remembering that the home lives of some of our students are very different, and the access that they have to learning can look different. And some of the things that we're doing, particularly in my district, is sharing that knowledge, but looking for ways for us to maintain the human connection, and supporting our teachers and figuring out ways to reach out to families whose students maybe don't have Wi-Fi access. How are we getting them access? For students who are unable to print out something at home, how are we preparing packets of information, reinforcing learning activities? Are we mailing those out? Really looking at all of those factors that level out the playing field, honestly, of learning for our kids. So that's really come to the surface, not only I think in my district, but across the nation. And it's created a sense of urgency for many more. That's a great thing. But acting on it is, as you know, a whole different ball game. And so um, I really feel that this will change education in the future, and we're never going to go back to the old ways. And so we're being forced to create better systems for kids. So the inequity in a nutshell has been the biggest piece that I think many of us struggle with.
Yeah, and you beat me to the next question that I was going to ask around that. And you have been such a champion for inequities, and not just during a pandemic, and calling it from the rooftops for as long as I've known you in that regard. So, a question for you, because I know your story personally, because you vulnerably have shared parts of it already here in the podcast. My question for you would be, what advice do you have for principals or for teachers that are reaching out? If you do go back to Rosa, the young girl, how do you connect with those that are living in poverty or that might not be connected, that have a different life lens and experience than maybe that teacher does or that principal does? What advice do you have for them, especially in the midst of a pandemic, to support some of our most at-risk kids?
Make every effort to make contact. And whether that is via a postcard or a phone call or a letter in the mail, snail mail, make an effort to help kids know that you're available, that you're there. Um, it's more challenging, I think, in the elementary level because we want to make contact with parent. It's difficult just to reach out to a kindergartner or a first grader. That brings many other challenges. But that in some way students know that you are thinking about them and that you care about them. The change, imagine, is challenging for adults. Uh, can you imagine how it feels for a child? Um, I know people have shed tears. I've had my moments of, why is this happening? And if you think about a child at home who doesn't have the stability or doesn't have the consistency, and very loving families and adults, but it's just a big change. And then if you add into that mix food insecurity, lack of health care, fear of fear of other things like deportation or whatever it may be, access to medication, it's a really stressful time for kids. And if you are able to make a connection, a human connection with kids and their families, it will really go a long way. Maybe that one thing that a student needs to get through the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. And every one of those children is an amazing opportunity and deserves that type of human connection in that regard. Rosa, you just mentioned the word fear, and fear is so real today. I mean, I think any person out there, heck, in the world that would say that they don't have any sort of fears right now is completely misguided or just flat out lying, because fear is just so paramount and just running rampant. And so as a district leader, you're looked to from all those principals that you're serving, from all those families in the community that you're serving. How do you overcome fear during the midst of this pandemic? And what advice do you have for educators to help them overcome some very real fears?
This is the leadership moment. If you had any doubt that leadership matters, uh, the last few weeks should have reinforced how important that is. Everybody is looking for guidance. People are looking for leaders. And I realized early on, as I mentioned, I had my moment of panic, like, why is this happening? And then I realized that people are depending on our team's leadership to guide them through this, through the big things and the little things. What is grading going to look like? Am I getting a paycheck? Who do I call if one of my teachers tests positive for COVID? Um, the big questions and the little questions, if you don't have the courage to address those things, and the courage to say, you know what, I don't have that answer yet, but we're going to figure it out. And to reassure people in a calm way, then that just creates more fear and more stress. And so I have to get myself together and realize that the more prepared and the more parameters and guidelines and direction and recommendations that we make, uh, the better our principals and teachers will feel, and their fear and their anxiety levels will be greatly reduced. And so we've worked in my district to really create a consistent message of support and hope and help, so that we help calm the waters and support people as they're dealing with their own fears and insecurities at home. And so modeling that is a big piece, and modeling a calm tone and being a good listener and tapping into that social emotional intelligence. Those are all really important pieces that people are really watching and looking to for support.
Yeah, I really believe that these moments of uncertainty, like you're saying, create such opportunities for your leadership legacy. And what's fascinating to me is every family, every child that we serve will look back at these moments, will look back at these periods of time, whether it's when they walk across a graduation stage years from now, whatever it might be at some
Mm.
point in life, and they will remember these moments. And that means it's an incredible opportunity, as you started, to say that it's a great opportunity to lead. And fortunately, we're seeing people
Mhm.
all over, from classrooms that are now remote classrooms to principals to directors and superintendents like yourself, truly stepping up further than they have even in the past. So one of the things I want to ask you is, you're somebody as a district leader that you are constantly taking care of all of your people. You're taking care of your principals, reassuring them, taking care of your teachers, your students, your community. How does Dr. Isaiah take care of herself in the midst of all of this? And what advice do you have for other educators, so that, when we look at a time like now, it's always easy to burn out as an educator, but right now that is completely amplified, because when we do things remote or virtual, it's really hard to shut off. So how do you work to prioritize your own well-being and that of your family? But then also, what advice do you have for educators to do the same?
I think remembering to care for self is probably the hardest thing right now, because you get caught up in the constant work and you're just moving. And for some of us, we depend on that just to keep us moving along. And so it can be unhealthy, right? Lack of sleep and self-care. Uh, I think being at home with family has really provided supports. It's reassurance. It's home, sitting from my couch and being able to talk to you. That is almost like my security blanket. So my family, being here with them, that gives me some relief. Self-care, I think just taking moments to take a walk if possible, taking moments to read something I love. I have a ton of writing to do, and so that for me is also something that helps me care for self. Um, Connecting with people and just sharing how I'm feeling, and being okay with not always having the answers, and being a little vulnerable and having a good cry if you need to. Um, addressing it and not pretending that it's not happening, and that you're the strongest one, and that you have a responsibility to, support others. But uh, just coming to terms with the fact that we're all struggling, whatever makes you feel good. And for me, it's reading, it's writing, it's enjoying time with my family, it's smelling the fresh air, it's raining outside, going outside and just taking a breath. Like those moments are
Yeah.
helpful to me.
It's funny to me that the things that you just mentioned as well are things that I've thought in the same thing. And what's funny to me about it is how many times have I not appreciated that in the past? And it seems to be those little things now that we're really appreciating more, that breath of fresh air,
Mhm.
seeing the flowers, being able to take a walk with our family, that things that only a handful of weeks ago we would have probably taken for granted, at least speak
Mhm.
for myself there. And one other piece, you referenced the term connection now multiple times, whether as a connected educator or staying connected to other people. And one of the things I despise that I continue to hear out there right now is this idea of social distancing, because that is completely the wrong phrase in my opinion. I think we need to be more socially connected than even ever before. The physical distancing, sure, that we can understand, but the idea of social distancing, that doesn't make sense to me. And so I know you'd be an advocate for that there as well. Let me ask you
Mhm.
two more questions and then I'll let you go. But first, I want you to think about, in the district that you're so proud to be a part of, like all the amazing things that are happening across the board, whether it's teachers, administrators, people stepping up, doing different types of things. What is it that you're most proud of right now?
I'm most proud of keeping our kids at the forefront. And so the decisions that we're making, we're really making an effort. I know it sounds very basic, but this is not um, the reality in many places. Is that how is this benefiting our students? And are we taking their current lived experiences into account? And so the decisions that are being made, um, I'm proud of that consistent um, idea that we have to consider our families. And my district is socioeconomically, we're two cities with two different demographics. And so finding balance and how to support everybody, but keeping our most vulnerable families at the forefront is important to us. So I've worked in places where that wasn't the conversation, where that's not the first thing we think about, is the students first. It's very easy to do what's comfortable, especially for the adults, especially when adults are afraid. Uh, but bringing it back to our why, which is students, is something that we have at the forefront for our kids and our families in my district. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, as you
Um,
should be. So,
I have
so,
a
so well said.
Yes, and I have an amazing team that I work with, and we're pretty aligned in that. We're pretty focused on that piece. That is a gift, to be able to have great conversations, honest conversations with a team, and that we're all aligned, and that no matter what, that's what we stand for, and so that's what we're going to work on
Yeah,
and back
absolutely.
up every time.
Absolutely. So one final quick question for you, and thank you for sharing that and sharing your heart. Final question is, when we look at all that educators have on their plates, the uncertainty that we all have at the forefront, we're not sure when this is going to end as we lead through these unprecedented times. What's one piece of advice for whether it's a superintendent, a principal, a teacher, whoever it might be, that you have for educators for this moment in time?
You mentioned social distancing and that being the wrong word. I agree with you. I think maintaining connections, like remember that piece. It's easy to get caught up in, especially if you're not video conferencing with the people that you work with every day, but remembering the human connection and how important that is. Uh, the other thing is, I think addressing the mental health needs that are arising. So we knew that our students were suffering in a different way than perhaps 10 years ago. And many districts are making efforts to address the mental health needs. That's going to need to come to the surface and in the forefront of the work that we're doing in the next couple years, because this is impacting our kids in ways that we're not even realizing yet. And so I want people to think about that and start thinking of a plan if you don't have one. How will we address the lasting effects of this COVID-19 crisis in years to come for our families and kids?
That's Dr. Rosa Perez-Isiah, everyone. Thank you for your time, Rosa. You're an amazing leader. Keep leading the way, and thanks for investing the time today.
You as well. Thank you for having me.